Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode on SAP UI5 and Fury training. In the last session in UI5, we talked about different variety of controls like table, drop down, icon tab filter, toolbar and message boxes. In today's session, we will start with another most interesting and important topic, so-called fragments. We talked about modularization of our controller code via formatter.js and different JavaScript files. So you can always create a reusable JS code, and in the scaffolding you can reference that code pretty nicely, and then you can start consuming conveniently that piece of code. This is what we have learned by far. So an example to that was like fragments. So when we say formatter, like we created a formatter.js or a model.js for that matter, and then we started conveniently using this piece of reusable method again and again in our piece of code. So this is what we have done. So formatter.js was also the same. We created a method and then we started using this method from other controllers. That's completely reusability of JavaScript code. This is how we use JavaScript code. Now, what about the XML reuse? What about if I want a view, a small part of the view which has to be reused again and again? What could be a typical example for the same? Let's take an example. Suppose I have a screen, a very big screen, and this very big screen is accepting personal data of an employee. When you look at this screen, it has lots of fields about personal first name, it has field about last name, it has field about age, gender, salary, income, all this different stuff. Together with that, it also has a set of fields which are representing employee permanent address. And this includes now the address line, landmark, house number, city, postal code, country, all these details. Now, similarly, if you see, there is also something called a temporary address or an office address. And the office address or temporary address for that matter also has exactly same fields. Don't you think, guys, whether it's a permanent address, temporary address, or office address, they all inclusive of same set of fields again, right? Ultimately, they are, yeah, scope is different. One is a permanent address and one is a temporary address and one is office address. Scope is different completely, but they are actually different group altogether, right? Don't you think these fields, the technically the field wise they are same? Makes sense, right? So would you go and create these fields again and again? Anybody? Would you go and create these fields again and again? No, doesn't make sense. So what you do in ABAP, if there is a small piece of screen which needs to be reused again and again in ABAP, what do you do in ABAP? Any ABAPer in the room? You create what in ABAP? No, form perform is used for your ABAP code to modularize. For screen, I am asking, what would you do in screen? If there is a small piece of screen which is reusable, what do you do? Yes, perfect answer. Ramana has got it right. We create something called subscreen. Yes, exactly. We create subscreen. So we have to create something called a subscreen. So we have to go and create something called a subscreen. Then in this subscreen, I'm going to put all these fields. Yeah, that's what we do. And then we embed this subscreen over there. That's exactly the same concept in UI5 called fragment. A fragment is actually reusable UI part. You can reuse it multiple times at multiple places. That's exactly a fragment is all about. I hope it's clear, everybody. That's exactly a fragment is all about. Multiple times, multiple places we want to use it. That's exactly a fragment. So what is a fragment? In interview, somebody asks you what is a fragment. What will be our answer in interview? What exactly is a fragment? What should be our answer? It should be short and simple. The trick to crack an interview is keep your answer precise and concise. If you are just giving so much of theory, nobody is interested to listen that. You have to be very precise and concise answer if you really want to crack an interview. What is a fragment? A fragment is a reusable UI part. It's a reusable UI part. That's it. That's all about a fragment is. It is just a reusable UI part. Nothing more than that. It is just a reusable UI part. The fragment can be embedded, can be embedded multiple times and multiple views. So you can add a fragment in multiple views also and multiple times within a view also. That's possible. Yeah. Now, the another interesting point to note that a fragment doesn't have its controller on its own. Just try and understand this point. Very important point. A fragment does not have its own controller. I say, Anubhav, if I design a fragment, let's say I design a fragment, this is my reusable fragment. And in this fragment, I had put, let's say, city, address, postal code, you know, or maybe I want to design a fragment for bank details. Okay. Let's say I design a bank detail fragment. Please enter your bank details. And now, if I click on this button here for bank detail, I can say fetch IFSC code. If I click on this button, fetch IFSC code. Now, where do you write the code for this button? Because the fragment itself doesn't have any controller of its own. What will you do? If you click on the button, where will you write the code for this button? Because fragment doesn't have its controller. Now, to understand this concept, let me take you to school days. Anybody? Have you learned biology in 10th class? In secondary or senior secondary, have you learned biology? There is a concept comes biology called parasite. Anybody? Do you know what is a parasite bacteria? Anybody? What is a parasite bacteria? What exactly it does when it enters into the body, in some body, human body or any body? It will enter what exactly it does. Anybody? What is a fragment? What is a parasite? It lives on the food cooked by host. That's a parasite, right? It doesn't cook its own food. It's a parasite. It lives on the food cooked by host. That's a parasite bacteria. So it's like paying guest. It comes or it's a guest which comes to your house and it doesn't cook its own food. It relies on the food cooked by you. Okay. Not a paying one, right? It's just a guest. So it's a parasite, lives on the food cooked by the host. That's exactly called parasite bacteria, guys. Now, same thing happens here. If you are using a fragment, you must be embedding this fragment somewhere, either on a view or by a controller. You are creating an object of this fragment. So this relies on the food cooked by the host. So who is calling this fragment? Some view must be calling this fragment, right? So there must be some view which is saying, hey, fragment, please come and sit inside me. So there must be some view which must be saying, hey, fragment, can you please come and sit and give me some functionality? That's what this view will do. But on the other side, if you look at, there is definitely a controller for this view. So now this is the controller where you will be writing the code for this IFSC code button in this particular controller. I hope it's clear, guys. The flow, how code for controller, code for fragment actions are also written in the controller of the invoking view. Yeah. Or also it could be possible to create an object of the fragment. I'll show you both techniques: embedding a fragment in design time or invoking a fragment by calling creating an object of the fragment. So it's also possible to create an object of the fragment. by controller. Of course, again, the code for the buttons which are there inside fragment should be written in the controller who is invoking them. Are you clear, guys? There are two techniques by which we can use a fragment. Technique one, where we can embed a fragment as part of a view. Technique two, where we can call the fragment or create a fragment object using the controller. I'm sure it's clear with everyone now what exactly is fragment, how it works. Let's get started now and see how can we design a fragment. So there are just two simple statements to learn to create a fragment. So first statement is creating a fragment. What do you think, which coding mechanism or which coding technique or language we will be using to create a fragment? Anybody? What coding technique we are using to create a view? Anyone? What is that we are using to create a view right now? What is the technique? We are using XML, right, to create the view. Perfect answer. We are using XML to create the view. Similarly, we will use also the XML to create the fragment because fragments are lightweight UI parts. So are we going to use XML? So now I say core fragment definition. And then you can say what does this XML namespace core means. And then we will also have here about XML namespace default. Just like view, guys, just like view, exactly like a view. It's just that it's lightweight reusable part. So, and then inside this core fragment, we are just writing the content. Then once you are ready, you can now embed this fragment, and then you can just put the name of the fragment, and that's it. The name is going to be the full path of the fragment, guys. Okay, so you have to put the full path of the fragment over here, and of course typically we put also the types equal to XML. Yeah, this is exactly the syntax to create a fragment. Let's get into system and try to take this example of address data which I just showed you in a minute back, and I want to create now two address sections and I want to embed that. So let's come back and watch out this exercise. Very easy, very easy. So what I want is, first of all, let me bring out this one out of that mode. That mode property doesn't look good for me in desktop. Let's save it and refresh. And now what I want is, I want to first of all design a tab. Okay, I want to design a tab for address data. Inside the tab of address data, I want to put two forms, one for personal address and one for office address. Yeah, so let's create a tab first of all. So you can also jump to the layout editor pretty nicely. So you can right click on the view tool and you can open this with the layout editor and just include another icon tab filter over there. So let's come in. It's starting the layout editor for us. It's loading all the elements of the view. Yeah, it is started. And now I want to add another tab over here. So let's select our icon tab bar. You can see it's selected, icon tab bar. And I can go to outline view and I can right click on the items and add a new item. And I name it as an icon tab filter. You can also add a separator first and then you can add a filter. It's your choice. I'm adding a filter directly. And I see it has given some name, some icon for that. Maybe I just change this to say address. And then we will just also change the icon instead of this to location. And I would also like to change the color. So color is not critical. I want it as a positive color. Cool. You see how beautiful it looks. Cool. Now inside this, we're going to add two fragments over here. So For that, first of all, we got to design one fragment and reuse that 2 times over here. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. So first, let's save the view, and I'll just close the view. And now I'm gonna go back and design fragment. So let's create a new folder altogether. So I can right click, say new. Please create a folder called fragments. And now I will add the fragment over here, new file, and I can say address info dot fragment dot js. This is important. This is important, guys. You must use dot fragment dot xml as an extension for creating a fragment. This name could be anything, but the fragment which you're creating must be indicated with extension dot fragment dot xml. Click on OK. It's been created now, and it's time to go ahead and write the fragment definition. So core fragment definition, and now here we are going to write XML namespace core equals to sap.ui.core, and hey, please give me XML namespace default with sap.m. And now I'm going to go inside and just go ahead and put a couple of more stuff inside. So let's go and add here a simple form. So we got to get the form library as well. Let's gonna get that XML namespace form class equal to sap.ui.layout.form form, and it's a simple form. And then I'm gonna add a title. You can actually add a title at the form level itself. Here you can add it, but I don't want to do that at this point. I would rather like to just simply create label and I can say street, house number. And now at this time I would like to show you another power. Since you guys are comfortable with creating simple form, I can now show you the power of SDK. Go to API reference, search for simple form. Sorry, go to samples and search for simple form. There are 12 examples of simple form, a dozen example for creating variety of forms. Yeah, and I can go inside, let's say one group, or I can also go inside maybe two group, horizontal, and you can see some sample over here. You see how it looks. You can probably go back, and I want to see two groups vertical side by side, and you see these are two groups vertical where label and data comes side by top bottom vertically. And maybe I want to see also one group column layout with 4 columns. So you can see there are now one group on the left, one group on the right. So like this I can create. So this is exactly for address again they are creating. So name, email, street. So I want like side by side like this. So I can just go to flip over to the XML code for this type of layout. And now you see this is the piece of code which they have. Now actually I think they are also using something called fragment. In the page I don't see the code directly. There is a fragment here, and here is we have the code. So fragment definition, XML namespace, layout class, layout form class, then core class, and then they are using a vertical box, and then they are using simple form. This simple form is editable false, column layout they are using, and now here they are using something called column layout. What is a column layout, guys? A column layout is nothing but the whole page is divided into equal columns. Okay, so let's say this is your whole page, and now what I'll say is this page please divide into columns like this. Okay, like this, please divide the whole page into different columns. And now in my first column, first 2 columns place the label, then next 3 columns place the input field, and last two columns place a button. So you can see guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 column layout it is. Typically, usually we have 8 columns. So it's an 8 column layout all the time. So if you look at the 8 columns, I can now tell what is the size of a column in mobile, what is the size of a column in desktop large screen, sorry, M means medium, means in the tablet how will it look, L means large screen. In the desktop, how will it look? XL means projector screen. How will it look in projector? So this is how I have decided my column size based on the project. So projector has big screen. So you're giving 4 columns for an input field because it can display again. The tablet relatively has small screen. So you're saying just 2 columns. Please use the input field in just 2 columns, which is sufficient. For desktop, you're using 3. So progressively it is increasing based on the screen size, this column size, how much column each input field should take. And now you see below, it is just putting text label, text label, text label like that for each of these things. That's called your column layout. Okay, that's called your column layout. System is putting that. So this whole fragment I can reuse as it is. I can come back and paste it over here. And now that's my address fragment which is being created. Wow, cool. So we have got address fragment. It's time to embed this address fragment in the view. So let's go back to the view, and it's in the view 2 where we created our third icon type filter. And now I can come here, and my icon tab filter is here, address one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come here and say flash icon tab filter. And let me add the fragment 2 times. So first fragment I'm adding, I'm saying, hey, can you please bring me a fragment with the fragment name? And that's the whole path of the fragment, online theory training start. What is the namespace we gave? OFT dot, just go and check the controller. The namespace is oft.theory.november. That's our namespace. And let's come down. Dot November dot, and now I'm saying fragment folder. And then inside this fragment, address info. And now once it is done, we'll also put the type. And we're done. Let's add it once again, guys. As I told you, we can add it one more time, the fragment, because one fragment can be added 2 times, multiple times. I forgot to give the namespace for fragment. It's called. Let's go ahead and execute this and see if we get the desired result. So 2 times the same address fragment should come up. Let's go back and check this output over here. Come back, refresh the page. And it doesn't work. So console is our best friend. Let's right click and inspect. And let's go to console, and we will get to know what error we have done. I think we have um, a duplicate ID called name text. Yes. Can you see it's trying to add that same fragment 2 times? And since your fragment has IDs assigned to each of the control, it is causing a duplicate ID error. So we have to remove these IDs actually. Okay. We have to remove these IDs. So let's remove these IDs. We should not keep IDs if we are using fragment. Okay. I'm removing that. I removed it. Let's come back again and refresh one more time. It's trying to add 2 fields with same ID multiple times, which is not allowed. Now another error, duplicate ID simple form. Yes, at the form level also there is an ID given here. That should also be removed. And let's refresh again. Looks like it's loading up. Yes, the app is loading up. Just close the console. and now you got address. Yeah, I click on address, and voila, can you see 2 times address is coming up over here? That's what we exactly wanted. Beautiful, guys. Can you see the same fragment has been added 2 times to the screen, and that's what makes it possible to reuse a lightweight UI part. Are you guys all clear how to use lightweight UI part? And guys, it's actually very embedded and integral part of the UI. Whatever binding you have, you can do the binding here as well. And that then system is accordingly going to take care of it. Okay. So binding will also work. You just got to add the binding here. So here you see some supplier name binding is done. I don't want to do that. I want to use like fruit name. Yeah. And I want to use like fruit price. Maybe I just want that fruit price. In the first one, I am just doing it in first two fields. And let's come back and refresh. You're gonna see the data coming up also on the address. So the binding also naturally works, and you see the lemon and 5 is popping up on the fragment. Okay, clear everybody? That's the beauty of reusable UI part. If you have certain reusable UI part, if there is a need to create same UI multiple times, would you go and create and repeat your code again and again? Of course not. You will be using a concept called fragment, where you don't need to repeat the entire set of code again and again. You can just create a fragment out of it, and then use that fragment multiple times and multiple places. You can also do that in multiple views. If you have 2, 3, 4, 5 views, all these 2, 3, 4, 5 views actually can also have it. Okay, that's completely possible. All the other views can also have it. Now there's a question, very valid question. You see the second fragment also got the same data. How can we have it different, right? So that makes sense. So of course, the address will not be same. So for that, you need to create a deep entity. Let me just quickly show you the data structure should change accordingly, because you should have ideally two addresses, right? From where you are getting the fruits. So let's go to model. This is a little heavy dose of for some of you. So now what you will have is actually, since you are having two addresses, your data should be there also. So if I say address data for every fruit, it should be an array, and this array should have multiple address, right? Do you think this should be the case? So address array, and that should have something called office address, and then of course you will have fields for office address, and then you will have permanent address. Are you guys clear? This data should also change accordingly. You should have the right data to be able to do this stuff. So now data is changing, and I just put some street, and I just put right now city. Just I'm putting two properties. Of course, you can add more based on the address form which you created. I say street is St. John's Street, and then I just say city as Jaipur, and then I just say street Brigade Road, city is Bengaluru. And I'll just quickly go ahead and create this data for the next record also, just to show you. And now maybe just put here some values. Mahamandir Road, Jodhpur, MG Road, Gurgaon. So maybe just put some data like that, and now we are ready. So that's our data. And oops, I did a mistake, guys. This city is not rounded with double quote. That's my bad. So that's why the JSON validation is done typically, right? This is why you do JSON validation. So now we have city also rounded. It still is giving some error. Use single quote instead of double quotes. Why it's giving this error? Address array, office permanent, curly braces, street, city, and that's repeating set of course for address. Why this is giving an error here? Ideally it should not. Let's do one thing, control A, go back to jsonlink.com. If you are always in doubt, you can always go there and validate if it's a valid JSON. Nobody can question on the JSON if it's not valid. And now you see, indeed there is an error. It's showing some error, parsing error in here for street. So why it's doing like that? Are you doing something wrong? Office colon. So address is an array. This array includes the first item as office. I got it, guys. I got it. Sorry, we should not put office like this. It's an array. Array should directly have these elements. This is how it should be, guys. Validate, and you see it's valid. The second record is having an issue. I got the issue now. So we should not have actually office like this. That was wrong. Array and directly two elements inside the array. That is the correct format for an array. Violated JS rule. And now you see web ID also, error is gone. We are ready to do binding. So remember the path, it's slash address slash one slash, slash address slash zeroth item. Do you remember the path, how to make path? This is what I taught you in previous classes, how to make path for an array. Slash address slash zeroth element slash first element. And there is street and city. Let's go back and do the binding. So now you can see binding cannot be done here directly. You got to do the binding dynamically. Okay, so you got to do the binding. How you got to do the binding? You got to come here and you just have to put here the relative binding, and to this particular simple form you got to bind the address path. Okay, the absolute path has to be bounded over there. Let me show you how to achieve that. So I come just do the street, and I just maybe just put the street over there and do the city binding over here. So I just put the path here, and now guys it's time to go ahead and create an instance, basically access the instance of this data and then do the binding. So for that let's come back, and where is my code for doing the element binding? So I just come in here in my view one controller. When we are navigating, that time we are doing the binding of relative path, right? So when item is pressed, that time we are doing bind element with the view, you can see. But inside the view now we have the fragments. So we got to get an access of the fragment. So here we need additional code to do what? We need to first get the object of icon tab bar filter. Inside that fragment, inside each fragment, a simple form, and bind that simple form with slash address slash index. Yeah, the first simple form will be zeroth, binding with zeroth index, and second simple form binding with first index. That's little complicated example, but yeah, it's worth looking into this example. Let's go and run this. Right now commented code won't help, but you got to write the code. I have written the algorithm to write the code, and now I'm going to fill this algorithm in the debugging, yeah, to see whether it works or not. So let's come back, and I would just press F12, and I would just do a refresh, and it should hit our debugger. When I select an item, it should hit the debugger. You see it's hitting the debugger when I select an item. And now it's time to get the icon tab filter from the view to object. That's our view to object. It's step by step, line by line, no copy paste. Go to view to object and then the get. I want to get it by ID, makes it easy for us. So maybe just have to give an ID in the view to for that element. So let's give an ID to that element. Where is my view to? And what is the ID for this icon tab filter? I didn't have it inside. Yeah, it has filter 3 as the ID. So let's get that filter 3 ID. So just gonna go back, view to by ID. Do you have a control with filter 3? It has got an icon tab filter. Inside the icon tab filter, if you say dot get content, it gets you now two fragments, guys. Can you see both are your fragments now? Yeah, it has got you two fragments actually. Yeah, because if you look at technically, both the fragments are actually having an object of vertical box. So what is there in the fragment? How it is built? It is giving an object of vertical box. So that's exactly, you got two vertical box objects here, because the fragment ultimately is just encapsulating control. Ultimately what gets rendered is your control. So you got two vertical box object. Now inside the vertical box, each of vertical box you have simple form object. So I will just right now trace it for the first one, zeroth one. This is my first vertical box dot get content, or get aggregation. Which aggregation is there? Get items, I think. So vertical box has only one item, so I can by default do 0. And now I have got my form object. And now I can bind this form object with bind element, and I will say slash address slash 0. Done, guys. And this is my code to actually perform the binding. And here I want to do it dynamically, so I can replace this zeroth index and this particular zeroth index with the loop. Yeah, so I can get the data and loop over it, and then based on whatever fragments items I have, I can do it. I can hard code it also, because I know there is always going to be two fragments inside. And now let's move on, run this piece of code, and let's come here. And oops, I don't see the data right now. I don't know what's the problem. Maybe just let's go and run this piece of code. So I'm just going to go back to the view2 controller, view2 here, and let's find the path. So sorry, view2 view1 controller, and here let's get the icon type filter object. So that's all done in a chaining way. I've done it already in the chaining way. So there is this binding now. And here for this one, it's one, and it's the second icon tab filter. Sorry, second element in vertical box. In that vertical box, I have a simple form. So this is my second fragment, and above one is my first fragment, and I'm doing binding with slash address path. So if you just go and check the model data, so you have an address entity, in that you have street. So I'm just binding with address of zeroth item, address of first item, and I think there is no extra slash required here. This one is 0 always, because this is vertical box. Each vertical box has only one item. Look at your fragment. This is your vertical box. Each vertical box has only one item. Okay. So that's it. Again, it's a relative binding. This one is also again a relative binding as relative to the second view, because whole of the second view is connected to the selected item. In that selected item, you have an address element, and then zeroth element, first element with the form I'm binding. And then within the form, if you go to fragment, within the form, once this form gets connected to zeroth address and first address, corresponding street and city will be displayed to the user. Street and city will be displayed to the user. That's again a relative binding. Let's come back. Now come back and refresh. And until you select, the code won't run. So let's go here first to select the code, and voila, can you see Mahamandir Road, Jodhpur? That's the first address, and MG Road, Gurgaon. That's the second address popping up on your screen, guys. You can switch back to the first item, and you see Brigade Road, Bangalore, And now here you see St. John's Road, Jaipur is popping up on the UI. So I hope Madhukaran that answer your question. How do we get different address data? This is all the magic of your JavaScript code. Once you have the right picture of the flow, right picture drawn about the algorithm, it's all easy. It's not at all difficult. And now it's easy to break this code, yeah. So I've done it also or by testing first in console. And once my testing was complete, I was sure that it is gonna work. And it's all the magic of binding. Again, those who are confused, obviously you will be confused because you have not practiced the binding concept properly. You have to practice the binding concept, the element binding and aggregation binding and the property binding. All three concepts which we learned are all equally important. If you don't practice soon, you will not be able to understand a single bit of it, because practice is the key to move forward. You have to practice, guys. There is no other way. If you know the binding, this example, yeah, it's little tricky, but yeah, it's ultimately possible for you to understand. So in this case, if you see, we have deep level aggregation. So first we have a master list, then we have a right side detail list. In the detail list, so whenever you're selecting an item, you're binding an element, selected element with this view. So that data comes here. Now at the bottom we have a fragment. So corresponding to this record, now we have to also do the binding, element binding with the form. So there are two forms. So corresponding to that, we have to also do element binding with the form. And now the whole form gets the data from first address item, zeroth address item, and first address item here. And then the child of that form will now get the data with the relative path of the address itself. So there are actually two element binding. One is between the master to detail, second element binding between detail to details icon tab filter containing a fragment. So detail to fragment we are binding. Okay, that's the binding example. Now moving on. So that's about the fragment at design time. What about at runtime? Let's take a use case. The use case here is very simple. My company, my manager comes to me and say, hey Anubhav, can you create an F4 help? So I want to create an F4 help. So please create design a filter button at the bottom of the master list. On click of that, a pop-up should come displaying all the suppliers. Also design an F4 help pop-up for displaying city in the field of table. So these are all the two requirements. Now can you guess anybody? What is so common? Do you have that eagle eye? Do you have that eagle eye? What is that common in both the requirements? Requirement, first of all, break it down into pieces if you want to simplify it. What happens the moment we get requirement, we always go and run behind fixing it up. We never read it properly. We never break it down into pieces. So point one, there are two requirements here. One is a filter button. Let's highlight this. And second requirement is for help. So there are two requirements here actually. This is the first thing you need to understand. What is the commonality between both requirements? Who will tell me? Who has that eagle eye to tell me that what is the common requirement in both the needs? So both the user needs, both the use cases. What is the so common thing? Very good. Srinivas has the eagle eye. He has read it correct. It is the pop-up. You see here, when you click on filter button, a pop-up should come displaying the suppliers. So there is a requirement here. Pop-up is now I have. You see, there's a pop-up should come when you click on this filter button. Now, when you click on F4 help, again a pop-up should come, and that pop-up should be used to display the cities. So the data is different. One is displaying supplier, one is displaying cities. That's okay. But ultimately, technically, both are pop-up. So don't you think it makes sense to get into one single fragment which generate a pop-up and then pass different data to these different fragments. That's the best reuse, I would say, for any kind of example over here. So that's the requirement. So let's go ahead first, enable this filter button and this F4 help for city. So let me just go back to, I think we have already enabled for city and F4 help, but this we didn't code further. In the last class, I told you I'll teach you in the next session. And then also a filter button is required in the master. So let's get a filter button first. So let's go to view one and I'm going to add that button. So just going to go back and go to footer, toolbar and toolbar spacer. Just want a small icon and press on filter. And just go to the one. Okay, let's come back and now see the magic. You should get a filter button. Wow, nice, how beautiful it looks. So you can see, guys, first the entry point for both the requirement is ready. So we have got now a filter button over here which is indicating that okay, there is something we're going to come, and then there is an F4 help also for the city input field. So what should happen ultimately? A pop-up should come. One pop-up should display the city data and one should display the supplier data. Are you guys clear with the requirement, all of you? If you are clear, then I will proceed. At least did you understood the requirement, the real time requirement over here? If you are clear, then only I will proceed. Yeah, so that's the requirement, and both needs the same functionality, actually a pop-up. So it makes sense for us to go ahead with the fragment way to reuse this pop-up functionality. Makes more sense for me. So let's go ahead and do that. Right now when you click, you see this page is under construction. Please come back later. This is how they design websites. Something which is under construction, to just begin and keep a placeholder at this point. Later on they will accordingly going to change it based on the need. So let's go ahead and create a fragment. So once again, new fragment, I'm creating new fragment. So new file, and I say pop. Any name you can give any name, whatever you like. You can give Spider-Man dot pop sorry, fragment dot xml. And guys, to show you what control I'm going to use, press F12. And there is a control in SAP UI5. The name of that control is called select dialog box. So just choose sap.m.select dialog, and now I just put a title inside this. So you can put any title, whatever you wish to. I'm just going to show you as a new sap.m.select dialog control dot open. I'm going to show you opening this select dialog control and press enter. And you see this is how the select dialog control looks like. The select dialog control comes in a pop-up. It has a title, it has a search field, and it has a list. This list includes items. Okay, this list includes items, and then you have a cancel button. We can also optionally, the moment it includes item, it is going to bring OK button automatically. Currently there is no item, so OK button is not coming. The moment it comes with items, you're going to see all the data. OK button will come up. And when you select an item in this, it will close also the pop-up automatically. That's called a list. That's called a dialog control. Select dialog control. Are you guys clear? This is the control which I want to reuse. So I will put this control inside a fragment. Clear, everybody? This is the control. Ultimately, this is the control which will display the pop-up. But since I want to reuse, I don't want to type this control multiple times. I want to use this control in a fragment. Okay, let's use this select dialog control, which is part of SAP M library. I come back and give my fragment definition, or no copy paste of code. Fragment definition. What is XML namespace core, please? It is SAP UI core, and default namespace is sap.m. And now it's time to put a select dialog control and just end it. That's it, guys. That's it. It's a reusable fragment called Spider-Man. Now it's time to do the coding. So let's come to Coda. And now we know that we have an F4 help. So for that's there in the table. So we will have the input field for the city. Somewhere here it is, the input field for city. We have enabled show value help on that other day to display a F4 help for the input field, right? Show value help. Now there has to be an event in input field called value help. I forgot, so I go to UI5 SDK check, and I just check for input field, find the input field, and we should see it here, event, and I have a value help request event for input field, which allows me to enable what should happen when user press F4 help, value help request. So let's use value help request, and I say on value help. So that's on value help. Let's come back to the code for view2 controller, and now I say on value help. That's what we want. And now it's time to create an instance of fragment here. So let's create an instance of fragment. So var o fragment equals to new sap.ui.fragment ui.core.fragment. I'm creating an instance of the fragment. Okay, I think it's SAP. Let's check. I forgot the syntax. Create fragment instance SAP UI. Let's check it out. SAP UI fragment is the class. So just use SAP UI fragment to create the instance of the fragment. In this pass the fragment name, its address oft.theory.november.fragments.spiderman. That creates a brand new fragment object for us. Once this fragment is created, I'm going to say fragment.open. So it will open the fragment for us. Basically, it returns you the object. It returns you the object of the select dialog control. Let's watch out whether on F4 help now it's opening the fragment object or not for us. Let's come back to the UI. Fragment spell is incorrect. Now let's save this and let's go and test it. So I go to supplier and press F4 help. It's not working. Something is wrong. Press F12. Look at the console, guys. There is a problem. No type for the fragment has been specified. So we didn't specify the type of the fragment. That's the reason it's not working. So it's sap.ui.xml fragment. Let's try this one. I think this should work to tell that it's an XML fragment, please. No, I think we have to give the type then over here. So we have to give the type of the fragment. Let me check again the syntax. I forgot the syntax, guys. Create a fragment object. SAP UI XML fragment. That's the correct one. The correct syntax. So it's new sap.ui.xml fragment, and in that pass the path, and that should work fine actually, but it's not working. Let me just come back and refresh. I think our namespace is incorrect. F12, see what's going wrong. In the console, when you come and check, you will see OFT Fury November fragment Spider-Man could not be loaded. It does not exist. Looks like we have done a mess in our namespace. So let's look at our namespace. It's OFT Fury November fragments folder. Yes, that spelling was incorrect. And then Spider-Man. Correct. That spelling was wrong. Let's come back and test it now. Voila! Can you see when I press F4 help, now it's launching up our pop-up. Yeah. Voila. Wow. That's what we wanted, guys. It's launching the pop-up. And now also on click of filter button, it should launch the pop-up. Currently says under construction, no worries. Let's copy the same code for fragment and paste in over there as well for page under construction. And there you go. Now, can you see the power of fragment? We have reused it at two places. Are you guys clear how to reuse the fragment? We have reused it in two different, this time two different controllers altogether. Yeah, two different places. And now watch out. What I want to do, want to display some data for the city wala fragment. So that is being generated by value help. So here I have to supply different data. So I can say, oh, fragment, but bind aggregation. Please bind the aggregation. I want to bind aggregation. Which aggregation? Items aggregation should be binded. And then I'll say path and I say slash. Let's go and check the fruits JSON. And in this we have fruits, suppliers, and city. So we want cities to be displayed city. And then we have city, famous, state. So let's come here, cities, entity set. That's the path. And this inside this we will give a template property. Tell what type of list items it will be. I want it to be a sap.m standard list item. And now inside the standard list item, we can put a description with a relative binding and title. Let's go in. And now it's time to just go ahead and check it. So it's city and state, or city and country. City and state we will use. So city and state. I hope these two are the properties which I'm putting correct. So that's about supplying the data now to your fragment. So because your fragment, ultimately fragment is just a wrapper. What control you are getting here, the object of the control, you are actually getting an instance of select dialog control. So this bind aggregation method is invoked at the select dialog because select dialog has items aggregation. Fragment doesn't have an item aggregation. It is the select dialog control. But if you look at the fragment, it's actually returning you an object of select dialog control. On that, we have now called bind aggregation. Supply the city data and display cities. Let's come back and test it. So I just come back, refresh the page, and F4, oops, nothing comes up. Something is wrong. The reason, guys, the model is not available for the fragment. Okay, the model which is there with the view, it's not available for this gentleman. So you have to make both the viewer and fragment friends. Okay, the controller is launching the fragment, but the controller or the view is not a friend of this fragment. Okay, it's not a friend of this fragment. So this is the reason why we need to make this fragment as a friend of your view. How do you do that? Very easy. You just first get the view object, this dot get view, and now say add dependent. Guys, what happens when you bring another employee in the team? Everybody start opposing, right? When a new team member join the team, when a newbie come into the team, when a fresher join the college, everybody start teasing them, right? So to get rid of the ragging, what do you need to do? You need to make a friendship with somebody over there who is already well placed, right? You need to have a good friendship. Similarly, in the team, to build a rapport, at least you should have 2-3 people or at least one person with whom you can build the friendship and understand the वहाँ का system क्या है. So that's important. So this is the same thing. When a fragment came as a fresher, he was ragged badly. He was not given an access even to drink water, which is actually in this case model. He don't have access to the model. To get the access to the water, notice board, principals notices, all the information in the college, he need a senior help. Who is the senior? Is the view is the senior here. So now we are making this view a friend with the fragment, and this is the statement which makes it happen. Add dependent. I'm saying that this fresher is dependent on the senior. The senior will guide the fresher how to pass the exam. Okay. Now, once this statement is done, you might have seen this statement in standard UI5 apps also when they are crowd loading fragments. That's what they do. Now come back and refresh the page and let's press F12. Voila! Wow, wow, wow! There you go, there you go. Can you see an F4 help with the desired cities on there, guys? What an amazing stuff. Congratulations, you have implemented successfully an F4 help with, with SAP UI5. Wow, superb, guys, superb. Now it's time to also implement the filter. It's coming empty. We have to do exact same thing. We have to do binding over there. So once you use to the code, you can do copy paste. So let's come here to the binding, and this time the binding. Also the friendship needs to be important. To do the friendship with the view one, the same fragment. It's a parasite. You have to have a friendship. Yeah, and then here suppliers, and then in the suppliers we have name and city. So let's bring that up. And let's come back and refresh the page. And click, voila, can you see supplier pop-up is coming up? That's your supplier pop-up. Yeah. And now go back here. The city is coming up. You can select a city and the pop-up goes away. But now the question comes, Anubhav, if I select Ranchi, the Pune should have got replaced with Ranchi, right? If I select Nagpur, the Pune should have got replaced with Nagpur. That's possible, very easy. Let's go back to view 2. And now here on value help is being triggered on a control, right? On value help is an event of a UI field, input field on the table. So we need the ID of that input field to set the value back. How do you get it? We get it from the event object. I'm going to store this ID in a global variable, this dot cell ID, and I'll say event dot get source dot get ID. This way I get the ID of the control on which F4 help was pressed, and I'm storing in a global variable. Okay. Get source is a method. Get ID is also a method. It's a chaining concept in JavaScript which we already learned in the past, which we are calling and getting the ID of the input field on which F4 help was pressed. And now there has to be an event which we have to create for the fragment. So whenever select dialog pop-up is being worked upon, so we can change an event here. So you can say, let's check the select dialog control documentation in UI5 SDK. And I will just check the events. And you see these are all the events. Which event do you think would help when user click on the line item? Anyone in the dialog pop-up? Which event do you think will help? Confirm event? Okay, let's check. This event will be fired when dialog is confirmed by selecting an item in single selection mode. Wow. Yes, you are right. So we can use this, and we can also read parameter called selected item, which is of type standard list item. Yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. So there's a confirm event, and this event I say on confirm. Now tell me, which controller shall I implement this on confirm event? Which controller shall I implement, because fragment doesn't have its own controller, right? Which controller? It is in the controller where which invoking the fragment. So if view2 is invoking this fragment, view2 mein implement karna padega. It's the parasite. You have to have on confirm here. Yeah. This is very important. This is parasite concept where now you are implementing it in the controller which is invoking it. Yeah. And here you get the parameter event again. And this event will help you to actually read the value of what was selected by user. So var value, I will say event dot get parameter, and I say list item. What is the name? It is selected item parameter. You can see the documentation, and then the selected item parameter get me the title, please. So I've got now the title of the data which was selected. That value I've got. But this value has to now go to this input field object, right? This is the cell ID. This is the input field object. So, but remember another catch here. The fragment by default do not supply this pointer as a controller instance to confirm event. Again, I repeat, fragment by default do not supply this pointer as a controller instance to this. You have to pass it explicitly. For that reason, we have to also, while creating the fragment object, we have to pass comma this. So that controller instance can be passed as a this pointer to all the fragment event handlers. So this statement is very important here. You have to pass the controller instance to fragment. So when the fragment is calling these events will also get this pointer as the controller object. And now I can use this dot get view. Please get me the ID. By ID, please get me the control based on ID, and the ID I have already taken it in the global variable this dot cell ID. And then I can say set value in my input field which was on which F4 was pressed, and pass in this value over here. Done, guys. Magic happens now when you test it. Magic happens when you test it. Let's save this up, come back and refresh the page. And now watch out. There's a Chennai value. I just press F4 on Chennai. Anybody, what do you want me to replace Chennai with? Anybody? Which city do you want me to choose? Any guess? Kochi? You want to select Kochi? So let's select Kochi. And something went wrong. No, it works. Yes, there you go. You can see Kochi. The Chennai value was replaced by Kochi now. Wow, guys, that's the example. Now let's press F4 on Mumbai. Mumbai cannot be replaced, man. No, no. Amchi Mumbai, no. Yeah, I would like to replace Delhi and maybe Delhi with Shimla. Let's select Shimla. And voila, can you see the Delhi is been replaced by Shimla now? Clear, everybody? Are you all clear how things are working up? With F4 help in end-to-end scenario, the real-time scenario over here, where you can see the value is getting replaced with whatever you like. That's an F4 help, end-to-end F4 help. The power here is the fragment, guys. Now, tomorrow your manager comes, hey, very nice. Can you make the data multi-select? Anybody? Can you make all the pop-up multi-select? If you would have designed this pop-up 2 times, how many places you would have to change? If you would have designed this pop-up 2 times, same pop-up 2 times, how many places you would have to change? How many places? 2 places you have to change because you have designed 2 different pop-ups for making it multi-select. Since now you made it as a fragment, watch out. I have to just go and this fragment, I have to say multi-select. I don't know the property name, so for select dialog, so let's go check. There is a property called multi-select. True. Just make it at fragment level. All the pop-ups in entire application all becomes multi-select. That's the power of reuse, guys. If you would have designed the select dialog 2 times in the code, then you would have to make this change 2 places. But since it's a reusable one, it's a fragment, just make it here and all the pop-ups will become multi-select automatically. Everywhere, entire application, wherever you use this, everything becomes multi-select. Come F4 and now you see it's a multi-select pop-up. That's the beauty of the fragment. Let's come here and this, the supplier is also multi-select pop-up. That's the power of fragment. I hope now you got an idea of why we did it like this, why we used a fragment, guys. because of its reuse, because of its capability of doing reuse, guys. Clear, everybody? Are you all clear? How to make the fragment enable, how to make it work, complete end-to-end scenario of having working with fragment with F4 help. Any questions before we close today's class? Anybody? Very interesting class. At least you would have understood functionally what is that we're doing. Technically, maybe little bit of confusions are there when you try this exercise. I don't give an exercise. When you try this the same thing in today's in your system, hopefully you'll get doubt, and that's the time you will get to know. So there's a lot of practice, of course, required. Practice is what makes man perfect. You have to really go deep into it and practice these things up, face the problems, challenges, and then look at my code, what needs to be done. Functionally, you already know the requirement. This is the functional requirement. Technically, how you will achieve, that's what you got to check it. What is the life scope for the fragment? The life scope of the fragment is lifetime of the controller. Same life as the controller or the view where the fragment is embedded. That's the same life scope of a fragment also. Okay.
Number one query I am
Yes,
having.
please. Yes.
When we are getting idea of any control in the view, actually standard is concatenating ID view with the control view dash dash.
Right.
Uh, yeah, why that's so like
That is
standard
how.
behavior?
This is the standard behavior how SAP UI5 is designed. So this is what also covered in our first 2 3 class. I think in UI5 I told you when you use an XML view, what SAP UI does is it automatically concatenates this view ID before the control ID. Okay. In fact, in this case, it's a cell inside a table. So you see view ID hyphen hyphen, then you have a table ID, which is supplier tab, and then you have the cell ID. So this concatenation happens to avoid any discrepancies related to IDs. Two elements on the same DOM page cannot have same ID, right? Two elements on the same page cannot have same ID. So this is the reason to make it unique. SAP is adding this element or view name or the context. Context in this case is table. So it adds how it adds. It adds view name, table, index, and then the field. So this is how it's generating the ID of the control automatically to make it somehow unique. Okay, cool. Sunita, you can call me in the evening after 7 p.m. India time. I'm rushing for the office late today already. So you can call me 7 p.m. afterwards. You have my number. You can talk to me after 7 p.m. India time today. I have a yoga class till 6:30, so I'll reach by 7:30 to home. So that is the time. Maybe 7:30 will be good because it may take a little bit of time. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, I do teach yoga also. So if you want to attend yoga classes, do let me know. If you are in Delhi, you can contact me. I will guide you with yoga sessions. I don't have any yoga session on YouTube right now, but yeah, I do teach one-to-one. Sun salutations and all the different yogas. Not just sun salutation, all the variety of them. Like micro exercises, mini exercises, then sun salutation is one, then we have deep yoga, we have strengthening of shoulders, different muscle specific yogas. So utkatasana, then we have shavasana, different varieties of asana, not bhatis, not swas related, but little bit of meditation plus different types of other yogas. Very important. 45 minutes of exercise every day keeps you get going for lifetime, guys. Very, very important for life. Without that, you can't imagine anything. Okay, can we make multi-select and one normal? Yes, very good question. There is a question here. I want to make one as multi-select and one as normal. It is also controllable. Who is the remote control of this fragment to your controller? Who is the remote control? Anybody? Who is the remote control of that fragment which has opened up? Who is the remote control? The remote control is this fragment object. This is the object which is the remote control of your your fragment actually, not the view. It is this object of the fragment. So if I want my city pop-up to not multi-select, I can do a special fire a special command. I can say set multi-select to false. Only to city wala object I am saying. This is my city object. I am only saying to it set multi-select false. Rest all remains multi-select, but city becomes non-multi-select. Play with the object. Everything is an object. Play with the object. Let's come back and test it here. F4 help, and now see it's no more multi-select. Yeah. However, this one still remains multi-select. Play with the object, guys. Play with the object. Look at the object, individual object of the fragment which you have opened, and accordingly you can also change the title, guys. So you see title is this one, and this one title not coming. You can change the title at runtime with the right object. Whichever object you will use, that title will change. Set title method you can call to change the title of individual fragments. Okay. Okay, there's a question how to free up the mind with our thoughts. Okay, guys, so for that, once upon a time, Lord Krishna in Gita have given a very good slok, and that slok is all about, it goes like this. Apyurthanam achala pratishtham samudram apah pravishyanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishyanti sarve sashanti na apnoti kamayami. What does it mean? Apyurthanam achala pratishtham. Apyurthanam means samudra. It means sea. There is a sea, there is an ocean, and in this sea, achala pratishtham. Achala means water. Water is entering inside the sea continuously from all the directions. Okay, there is a ocean, and the rivers are coming, and these different river streams are coming and entering inside the ocean continuously since many years. Okay, many years it is coming, and it is entering inside the sea. Okay, Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve. The same way, from all the directions, distractions will enter inside the human mind. So we have subconscious and subconscious mind, and all from the directions you via the indris, the different distractions will enter in your mind. But look at the ocean. Ocean is still. Okay, ocean is still not moving, it is still very still. Though the river's water is continuously entering inside the ocean is not moving, it is still very still. This is the way, this is the behavior we should also exhibit in life. Though the distractions would try to enter inside your mind via your indris, but you have to be very conscious, and for that Krishna has also told couple of rules. The first important rule is try to control your indris. Indris is your eyes, your tongue, your nose, your ears, and your skin. You have to control these indris via your mind. So one way is to do meditation, which gives a lot of control, a balanced control to control your expectations and your libido. Okay. So all your libido, all your lust, you can control with the help of your mind by controlling your indris. The second important thing which you need to do, once you learn controlling, you will not even feel like having those things again. Somebody is addicted to phone and WhatsApp. Okay. You have to control your skin. You have to control your eyes by stop watching WhatsApp. Once you are able to control it, you will definitely be able to, you will not even feel like having it. I was a very big addict of PlayStation. I used to play games day and night on PlayStation. And one day I decided to give it up. One day I decided to stop doing it. And believe me, guys, till that date and today's date, I didn't touch it again. I didn't even touch it again. So you have to have that much of consciousness in the mind developed that if I continue doing it, it will be disastrous for me. You have to somehow convince yourself that this is not good for me. Learning is good for you. Distractions will always come. They will come to you. They will always try to enter. There are certain things which you can't avoid, but you have to learn how to meditate and how to control your indris. That's the first thing. If you are able to control only just on your eyes, tongue, ears, nose, and skin. Five things. Just keep it in mind which type of distraction are attacking which particular indri. Which type of distraction attracting your eyes? Which type of distraction attracting your nose? Nose is like food addiction. You have some food addiction without which you can't survive. Some people have this habit of eating sweets every day. Very bad for your health. You can't survive for long. You will have problems related to sugar, high blood pressure, and a lot of other things. Even though you on top you're not exercising and eating sweets, very bad for your health. You may not see a result today, but the compounding effect is very big over a period of time. So try to get into habit of doing meditation. A lot of YouTube videos are there to meditate, how to control. You have to have that in your mind, guys. Okay. There's somebody posting a link also how to control it. Maybe you can try that out. I don't know. But I usually use YouTube. I see a lot of videos on YouTube, and that's when I get to know. I listen to a lot of babas, a lot of spiritual gyan. I used to listen. So because of that, it helps me a lot. So a lot of spiritual knowledge I gain from different books, from YouTube videos. So that helps me a lot to gain. So while I'm eating, I don't watch the Big Boss. I don't watch this cricket. These are all distractions. Cricket is the biggest distraction in our country. अगर उससे बच गए तो you will save a lot of time. Come on, guys. 22 people are making fool of you every day. Same format, same thing. Again and again repeating. One day one person is winning, another day another person is winning. What are you getting out of it? What are you getting out of it? Nothing. You are just wasting your times, 8 hours or 6 hours behind it. You are just wasting your time. So that is the biggest distraction, guys. So think about it. What is that you're gonna get? Virat Kohli is gonna get billions of bidding prize, or I don't know. I don't even know the full player names. They are gonna get big prize money. But what is that you're gonna get? It's just an entertainment. You're just wasting it. You're just wasting your time behind it. That is not at all any productive. Not at all any productive. Not at all any productive. Entertainment is important, but getting into the habit of doing a good entertainment which feed your mind in the right direction. That repetitive entertainment is of no use. It's the same repetitive entertainment of 22 people playing a match against each other. It's a repetitive entertainment. What fun are you getting in it? I don't understand. I don't have a clue about it. Some people do watch Big Boss, looking at people living in a house, closed house, and fighting with each other every day. Doesn't make sense for me every day. Watching the same stuff, fighting people. Doesn't make sense for me. I stopped watching it. I started watching better things. Start giving good food to your mind, guys. What are you feeding to your subconscious, your unconscious mind? Based on that, your future will be decided. That is how you can control. There are many things which you can do, and that has changed my life actually. Even I used to watch a lot of entertainment, lot of play group, PlayStation, stuff like that. I used to do a lot of other things. Swimming is good, playing tennis is good, doing outdoor games is very good, because that is what keeps you healthy. That is always good, guys. You can do that. But watching TV, watching WhatsApp, they're all silent killers. Killers of your time and your career. With that, it's a wrap on today's class. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Have a nice day and goodbye.